I teach on the occupational therapy program, and the unit's a fourth year unit. It's called Occupational Justice, and it's a unit that teaches students about the things that may affect people in doing the things they want or need to do in their lives, outside of, say, a disability or an illness. And so it forces the students to think in a slightly different way, so not so much in just a health related model, and it really challenges their thinking. So I've been looking at ways to help them to think about different people's perspectives and different people's lives and the stories that might be impacting on what they need or want to do. This unit has face-to-face in 3-hour workshops rather than a lecture and a tute, and not every week. And during the times when students aren't in class, they have activities that they're to complete that are predominantly online. They might have a journal article to read and some questions. Sometimes I follow up those questions in class so that kind of they get the opportunity to ask questions if they didn't understand. They might have a podcast to listen to, or some PowerPoint slides to look at, or sometimes I do vodcasts as well, depending on what I think is the most important aspect of that learning for that particular topic. And also part of what they need to do is a learning journal. I've set this learning journal up as a private learning journal rather than a public forum, because one of their learning outcomes is to understand and consider their own and societal attitudes towards people who have difficulties in these areas. So, you know, the groups of people might be people with disabilities, it might be refugee and asylum seekers, it might be people with experience in poverty or homelessness. And so I think it's important that students are aware of their own biases or their own ideas about these groups of people, so that they can be more aware, and some of them in fact do change their attitudes over a period of time, or perhaps become aware of what they thought they knew and then get some other ideas about how they want to think about certain issues. I use access to video as well to help bring statistics alive. So it's all very well and good to look at the statistics of homelessness, but unless you've kind of some of the very good quality documentaries might help someone bring those statistics alive, and so that might help them do their assignment when they're thinking about, well, what would the things that someone who's homeless have problems doing in their daily life, and how might an occupational therapist help them with this? So this is another way of accessing that information. I think one of the first things is have a plan. Like, think about what the educational advantage of using a particular tool that's online. It's not just a simple case of replace, you know, I'm going to replace this with this, but what will create it to be more flexible and a better educational outcome for the students, as well as obviously if it's going to save you time, then that's also a good thing, rather than just we'll replace this with this, because I think that you know, we still need to have that face-to-face contact, and particularly in our field where we're teaching students how to be with people and how to talk to people, that you can't take that away necessarily, but thinking very carefully about what experiences are better in a tutorial or workshop setting versus what goes online. So that's probably one tip. Another one would be keep it as simple as possible. Like, you know, sometimes it can be way too complicated, more complicated than it needs to be. So if you're like me, I'm not technologically able. I'm willing to give everything a go, so I sort of try things out and see if they work, but I always start on the principle that it's got to be simple to use, both for yourself, because I think sometimes we think that these students are quite savvy on the technological side, but you know, you know, I have had students who say, how do I turn the MP3 on? And it's just like the little click button. So, you know, remembering that whatever we do, we've got to also think about the end user and how they're going to, what their experience is going to be like. I think one of the other things is don't think you have to change everything at once. That this is, you know, for a lot of things might be an evolving process. So, you know, maybe it's, I'm going to do podcasts for this year, and then if that works and students, we get, you know, it works for our students, then we'll look at what else we might incorporate. The next one would be making sure that whatever you do online and provide or blend into your unit is accessible to all students. So whether that's looking at what file size it is, or what type of file, or making sure that you have appropriate instructions about how to use a particular file. So if they need VLC, for example, or they need something to be able to open the file, because otherwise you're going to get 50 emails saying, I can't open the file. The other part about that is also recognising that some things are more accessible than others from a standards point of view and from a disability access point of view. So being aware of that, I think, helps you to make decisions about what you want to do. So if you're like me, not very technically savvy, find people who are. So whether that's identifying, you know, like a support person, someone who's within your school or within the university, you know, that will help you figure out what the problems are rather than struggling along. That sometimes there are people who say it might be just a case of you've pressed the wrong button, or you've done something that's very simple that can be fixed. And so feeling okay about getting support, that not everyone has to have the technical skills, but there are people that do. So, and also, I guess the final thing is you don't have to change everything at once. And think about, you know, well, what can I change this year, and what will I change next time I run this unit, so that, you know, that you're not feeling like I don't have enough time to do everything, but to actually go, well, actually I can do this, and, you know, I'll see how this goes, and then I'll take the next step.